Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Monday, the 22nd of December. Christmas is coming. As I record this, it is really cold. The weather is really nasty, and I'm glad to be in a warm house with the Christmassy stuff around me. Skunk may or may not put in an appearance today. She's been hanging out with me, and every time I'm on Zoom or something, she tends to pop in and say hi. Here she is. There she is. Say hi, Skunk. There she is. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about information and what we do with it. How do we understand it? It used to be when I was a kid, information was facts. It's the things you could look up in that set of Encyclopedia Brittanica we had at home that we could, dive in and find out everything there was to know about ostriches or eggplant or Russia or whatever the thing was, and the really cool pictures that you weren't allowed to rip out to put in your project for grade three. Back before we had handy photocopiers, and certainly before we had color photocopiers, but information was something that we could actually look up and get. Now, was it easy to find? Well, relatively, in that day and age when I was growing up, you would go to the library and you would go to your local library and you would find the research, you'd find the information, or you'd ask a teacher, or you might call something. Like I remember there was a movie with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, and Katharine Hepburn ran this group of women who um, were these information gatherers. They were the keepers of all knowledge, and people just could randomly call in whatever city it was, New York or Chicago or Philadelphia or something. You could call in, and they would come up with the answer. It could be who won the World Series in 1926, or what is the what is 1432 times 1,435,224.2 or something, and they would be able to get the information right there. If anybody remembers that movie, I'm a huge Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn fan, so let me know if you remember what movie that was. But the idea was that information was available, but we trusted the sources of the information. If you went to the library, you could trust that the librarian would know what book to help you find, and we trusted that the library book would have real information in it, true information. Well, with this movie, this calling up the experts and asking, they had a good reputation because they knew what they were talking about and hence they were trusted. Well, not so much anymore. I remember when I was in first year of my Master of Divinity program, and I did not have a computer until I got into first year of my MDiv, and I did not have internet. I didn't have internet until I was ordained, until I graduated from university completely. And so we had limited resources. We could go to the library and research things online. And I was very, like, I was a baby when it came in 1996 trying to discover these things. But one of our professors warned us. He said, Gord Hamilton, he said to us, one thing you need to know is when you do your research, you need to have primary sources. You can have secondary sources, and I think it was tertiary sources. You are only allowed to have, I think it was one or two resources that were online, that you didn't actually pick up the book yourself. And he made it very easy for us to get interlibrary loans and things like that. But he was very clear because he said there had been a case, I think he said it was at Harvard, where with the internet, it was people would type things in, it would be on the internet. It's like Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not exactly a factual source of information because anyone can put any information on there, and it's just sort of trusted that it's true. And his thing was there had been a couple of cases, I think it was at Harvard, where people had actually inputted wrong information intentionally, and then people were getting caught with their research saying, this is my proof because here's my source, and the source was wrong. So he warned us you can only use one or two of these online resources for your work because you can't prove it. You can't actually put it right there and prove it. 1 second, I'm going to try something I've never done. I'm going to pause the video and let the dog out on the deck and then come back. Oh no, she's walked away. We're good. Okay, I won't pause. Anyway, so information, we used to be able to trust it. Well, now the question is, can you trust it? AI, artificial intelligence, things are created. It isn't always the case that something is correct. AI can lie. I am going to try to edit. Just 1 second. So I think that worked, that I can pause, and in a minute I might have to do it again to let the dog back in because it's miserable outside and she'll be barking. But it's better than having her crying. There have been cases that we know about where AI was wrong. My husband Rob is taking some computer courses, programming and coding and things like that. And there have been cases where you can use, they recommend use AI to check your work, but do not rely on AI to do your work because AI can be wrong. It's only as good, the resource is only as good as whoever inputted the resource in the first place. So the point is that we can't always trust the information that's readily acceptable. And these days, I don't know of anybody who has a set of Encyclopedia Britannica. And, like, who has those? Do they even make them anymore? And it's a shame if they don't. But who has that kind of primary source information in their homes? We all Google. The number of times I've said, "Hey Siri," and then now she's going to answer, and asked a question like, "What does this mean?" or "What is this?" I do it for area codes all the time. So I get a phone call from some place, and I trust, is this a real person? And so I will say, "Hey Siri," and ask, "Is it what's this area code?" And quite often it comes up as it's often used for scamming. 1 second, again the pause. So you can get lots of information from asking Google, asking Siri or Alexa on our devices. But the question becomes, do we trust that information? Is the place or the person or the source a trusted source? And I was listening to something the other day. I'd like to listen to a historian. I think her name is Heather Cox Richardson, or Heather Richardson Cox. I think it's Cox Richardson. And she sort of she dives into the local politics or the current politics, not from a position of which side, like picking a political side, but looking at it from a historical or historian's perspective. And she mentioned that there are two things that are new in this era. There's the idea of misinformation and the idea of disinformation. And she said misinformation has been around forever. Someone honestly gives you misinformation. It is a mistake. They give you this, they think they are right and they tell you. The number of times I have tried to give directions to someone, you go down here, you turn right, you turn north or whatever, and then later on realize, oh my heavens, I sent them in exactly the wrong direction. Did I do it intentionally? No, I gave them misinformation, not because I was trying to do something, heinous to them, but because I really just made a mistake. And most people, and I still live in a world where most people, if they give wrong information, it's because it was misinformation. But we are also now living in a world where people are intentionally giving disinformation. And disinformation is when someone has, as I said, intentionally, is on purpose or has a plan to help to make people think the wrong thing. And I'm not going to mention names, but we all know people in the world these days who provide mis or disinformation, not simply not telling the whole story, but literally telling the wrong story so that people can be confused, so that people will make decisions that benefit them rather than the others for all kinds of nefarious reasons. We need to get to the point where we recognize or we do the hard work, and it is hard work, of really thinking about what is the source of the information that I'm receiving. Is it real information? Is it verifiable information? Is it coming from a trusted source? Could it be misinformation? If it's wrong, we don't necessarily need to jump automatically to nefarious purposes, but just that somebody made a mistake. Or we also have to have that gut check and the fact check that says, is this disinformation? Because quite a bit of what we see online, on Facebook, on some newscasts. I like CTV, I like CBC, those things, but there are other newscasts, national newscasts that have a very specific bent and are have been proven willing to give disinformation if it benefits the cause are that their cause celeb. So the question needs to be comes back to us when we are making decisions, when we are about to do something, whatever it is what is going on, when we are in need of information, we need to be careful to make sure of the source. We need to make sure it's a trusted source. And we need to be able to verify it and check and find out, is this misinformation? If it is, be forgiving. Somebody makes a mistake, it's just a mistake. But also be savvy enough, as they said, Jesus said, be as sly as a fox, smart as a fox, and innocent as a dove. We also have to be willing and recognize that there are people out there who will intentionally give us disinformation. And it really ends up being, while it's awful that they do, it ends up being our responsibility in the end to make sure that the decisions we make, the life that we live, is based on appropriate information. So as we head into this Christmas season and we head into maybe a bit of downtime between Christmas and New Year's and maybe rabbit holes you might go down as you scroll through your phone or look at your Facebook or watch TV, listen to the news, pay attention and do that check on, is this true? If it doesn't sound like it's true, do some research. And if it sounds too good to be true, do some research because I don't want any of you to get caught being manipulated by or being mistaken by misinformation or manipulated by disinformation. Research, research, research. Pay attention to your sources and listen to your gut. Listen to your gut. It won't often lead you in the wrong place. And if in doubt, go find an Encyclopedia Britannica. Have a great day. God bless you, and I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel.